All right, welcome everyone to another deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring the world of sales.
Yeah.
And to do that, we're going to be looking at the work of, well, he's kind of a legend, Joe Girard.
Right, Joe Girard.
He holds the Guinness World Record for, get this, selling the most cars.
Yeah.
Like ever. And we're going to be taking a deep dive into his book, How to Sell Anything to Anybody, to really deconstruct what made him so incredibly successful.
Exactly. I mean, we're not just going to scratch the surface here.
Yeah.
We want to go deep. We want to find those golden nuggets, those core principles that made him so effective. And the great thing is anyone can take those principles and apply them in their own lives.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's so compelling about Joe Girard is that his story is so inspiring. He didn't come from, a wealthy family or anything like that.
No, not at all.
In fact, it was the opposite.
Right.
He grew up poor. He faced a ton of rejection early on. In his life, he had to overcome some serious obstacles to achieve what he did.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes his achievement so impactful.
Yeah.
Because it really shows you that being successful in sales isn't about some natural talent that you're born with.
Right, yeah.
It's something that you can build through understanding people and a whole lot of hard work.
Yeah.
And dedication.
Persistence, for sure. So let's jump right into it.
Okay.
In the first couple chapters of his book, he really lays the groundwork.
Yeah.
He talks about, his early struggles, his early failures, and then this kind of pivotal moment when things clicked for him in sales.
Yeah.
What were some of your main takeaways from that part?
Well, what really struck me was how quickly he realized that the product itself wasn't the main thing.
Yeah.
The most important thing was the person he was talking to, the customer. He came up with this really key idea, and it's something he says over and over again. People buy from people they like.
Right.
It might sound simple, but when you really think about it, it's so true.
Yeah.
Especially today, when we have so many choices.
Right.
Who do you usually end up buying from? It's the person you trust, the person you feel a connection with.
Right. It's the human element. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And that totally changes, I think, the whole approach to sales. We're not trying to pressure someone into a deal. It's more about building that rapport and building that trust, which is really interesting.
Right. And he actually says, you are the first thing you're selling.
Oh, yeah.
If the person doesn't connect with you, then it doesn't matter how good your product is.
It becomes secondary.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the human connection is really at the heart of it.
Yeah. And if we zoom out a little bit, it's clear that Joe Girard wasn't just focused on making a single sale.
No.
It was about building these long-term relationships.
Yes, exactly.
Because happy customers, they're going to come back for more.
They come back and they tell their friends.
Right. And that leads perfectly into, well, one of my favorite parts of the book.
Okay.
Chapter 3. This is where he gets into all his actionable rules.
Right. 3.
Some real gems in there. Don't knock the competition. Be enthusiastic. And, of course, his famous follow-up like crazy. Why do you think those seemingly simple rules are so effective?
Well, let's take don't knock the competition.
Yeah.
That's actually smart on a couple of levels.
Right.
First, it just keeps things positive. Nobody likes to listen to someone bash other people.
Right. It's not very classy.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And second, it subtly shows that you're confident in what you're offering.
Oh, yeah.
You don't feel the need to tear down your rivals, which implies that you truly believe in your product.
Right. Yeah.
And enthusiasm, well, that's just contagious.
Yeah.
When you're genuinely passionate about something,
Yeah.
it's hard for other people not to get excited about it too.
Right. You can feel it.
Exactly.
And then that follow-up like crazy rule,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's become like legendary.
Right.
And it's not just about, sending a polite email a week later.
No. It's much more than that.
Right.
For Joe Girard, every single potential customer, every lead,
Right.
even someone who just showed the slightest bit of interest,
Right.
that was a valuable opportunity.
Right.
And his relentless follow-up really showed them that he cared about their business
Yeah.
and that he wasn't just going to forget about them.
Right. Like he's invested.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, people are busy.
Yeah.
They've got a lot going on. So consistent, thoughtful follow-up.
Keeps you top of mind.
Right.
Yeah.
Keeps you top of mind, and it shows that you're serious.
It shows you're not messing around.
Exactly.
So then we get to chapter 4. And this is all about preparation. And Joe Girard took this to, well, I think a whole new level.
He did.
It wasn't just about knowing the features and benefits of the car.
It was the whole package.
Yeah, it was everything.
He believed in dressing professionally, keeping his workspace organized,
right?
Paying attention to those little details that project an image of competence
right,
and professionalism.
Right, because details matter.
Absolutely. And his product knowledge.
Yeah.
It was incredible. He wanted to be the absolute expert.
The go-to guy.
The go-to guy, the person with all the answers.
Yeah.
And that level of preparation, it's not just about having the information.
Right.
It's about giving the buyer confidence.
Right, that you know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
And it really paints a picture of someone who was totally dedicated to what he did.
Yeah.
Showing up every day, 100% ready to go.
Exactly.
And then in Chapter 5, we get into prospecting. And this is where his idea of building a referral machine really comes into play.
Right. And what's so insightful about this is his proactive approach.
Yeah.
He didn't just wait for customers to come to him.
Right.
He went out and actively built relationships with his existing customers, knowing that they were his best source for new business.
Yeah, because happy customers are your best salespeople.
Exactly. It's a fundamental marketing principle.
Right. And I love the story about the monthly cards.
Yeah.
He would send out personalized cards to all of his customers. It's like, old school CRM.
Right, like a manual CRM.
Yeah, before computers and all that.
It's that personal touch.
Yeah, really shows that he cared.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a generic newsletter. It was a personalized message
Right.
that really reinforced the relationship.
Yeah, that personal touch can go a long way. Now, when it comes to the actual sales presentation, Chapter 6, Girard's approach was surprisingly customer-centric.
It was. No high-pressure tactics, just a genuine focus on understanding the customer's needs.
Asking questions.
Asking questions.
Really listening to the answer.
Listening to the answer.
It sounds so simple, but,
You'd be surprised how many salespeople don't do that.
Yeah, it's amazing how often salespeople just talk at their customers instead of talking with them.
Exactly. And, Joe Girard, he understood that the most effective way to sell something is to help the customer realize that your product is the solution to their problem.
Right.
And by asking those smart questions and really listening to what they had to say, he could tailor his presentation and address their specific needs.
Right. So it becomes about guiding the customer to the conclusion that, hey, this product is for you.
Yeah, you're not pushing, you're guiding.
Exactly. And of course, there are always objections. So in Chapter 7, he talks about handling those objections.
Right. And his approach there is all about staying calm.
Yeah.
And figuring out what the underlying concern is.
Right. Not getting defensive.
Exactly. He didn't see objections as rejections.
Right.
He saw them as opportunities to clarify something.
Right. Yeah.
So by remaining calm and understanding, he could really dig deeper into what the customer was hesitant about and then offer solutions or provide more information. He believed that most objections came from uncertainty.
Right. They just don't understand something.
Exactly. So his job was to give them that clarity and that reassurance.
Right. Make them feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And then we get to the close, Chapter 8.
Okay.
And there's no big, dramatic push for the sale.
No, not at all.
It just seemed to flow naturally from the conversation.
Right, because if you've built that rapport,
if
you've understood their needs, addressed their concerns, asking for the sale is just the next logical step.
Right, it's not this big hurdle to get over.
Exactly. And his tricks, so to speak, were never about manipulation. They were just about respectfully guiding the decision and making sure the buyer felt good about their choice.
Right. So it's a win-win.
Exactly.
But, it doesn't end with the sale, does it?
No, not at all.
Chapter 9, he really emphasizes the importance of follow-up and after-sale service.
Yes. And this was absolutely key to his success.
Yeah.
The birthday cards, the thank you notes, the regular check-ins, these weren't just nice gestures.
Right.
They were strategic moves to build loyalty and encourage those referrals.
Right.
You're showing the customer that you value them beyond that initial transaction.
It's about building a lasting relationship.
Exactly.
And it's that consistent nurturing that really sets him apart. And then finally in Chapter 10, he brings it all together.
He does.
Reinforces the core of his philosophy.
And it really comes down to, consistency, genuine care for people, and that constant commitment to learning and getting better.
It's about always improving.
Exactly. He believed that success in sales, or really any field, comes down to hard work, authenticity, and that drive to always be improving.
Right. And that applies to anything. So, when we step back and look at all of this, what are the key takeaways that we can apply beyond just the world of car sales?
Well, I think the central message is the importance of people.
Right.
Understanding their needs, treating them with respect, building that genuine trust, and following through on your promises.
Yeah.
Preparation, authentic enthusiasm, a dedication to building those lasting relationships.
Yeah.
These are all fundamental principles that can be applied in almost any area of life.
Yeah, it's about connecting with people.
Exactly.
On a human level.
It's not about that stereotypical hard sell. It's about creating meaningful connections.
And providing real value.
Exactly.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into Joe Girard's methods, here's something to consider.
Okay.
How can these principles of building strong relationships and focusing on the other person's needs apply, not just in a traditional sales role, but in any situation where you need to connect with and influence others?
Right.
In your personal life, in your professional life, it's about thinking about which of Girard's rules or philosophies resonated most with you.
Yeah.
And what's one small way that you can start applying those in your own interactions?
Right.
Something to really think about.
It is.
All right, everyone, that's our deep dive for today. We'll catch you next time.
Great, thanks.
Thanks.